Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. It's good to see you.
It's wonderful to see you. Do you have a light? It's quite
Am I
dark.
dark? Am I dark?
Yes, yes.
Let me turn it up. Is that better?
That's much better. I can recognize the background which you had in quite a few podcasts which you were doing. I've done my homework.
There you go. I love it. I love it. So how's your day?
It's been very well. Quite busy actually. I had quite a few meetings, but yes, it's a glorious day out there. We have to use it in the UK. It's not as common as the US.
I've heard that. I've heard that. That's good though. I'm glad that your day is going well. So I'm gonna go play my audio settings a little bit.
That's absolutely fine. Take your time.
There we go. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you actually very well. Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, good.
So tell me, how are you? It's so wonderful that I could connect with you. I've been reading all your posts. It's been really, really nice.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm doing well. It's been, for everyone, it's been a challenge going through this pandemic, but there's just been so many good things that have come out of it as far as relationships and personal growth, and things fall away too, but that's part of life. Dead branches do fall away.
That's
So
right.
it's good to let them fall away and embrace the new growth.
No, absolutely. I hear you. I hear you. I had quite a few changes as well. If you heard any of my podcasts or read any of my posts.
People, I've had a few friends always tell me, yeah, I can kind of, because I'll talk, sometimes it's just whatever comes to my mind, but people are like, oh yeah, they know me. They're like, okay, I knew you were talking about that post because we talked about this yesterday, and and there's things that I've dealt with or struggled with, or and sometimes it's something. It might have been something that happened 6 years ago, and it might have been something that happened 16 minutes ago, right? And then because I know other people have similar, but I think when you're when you're dealing with challenges, it's easy to feel like it's just you, and
Yeah.
it's only happening to you, and no one understands. The reality is a lot of people understand, and when we talk about it, then all of a sudden they say, oh, I'm not crazy. Oh, wow, this is common. And there's a community, and then there's a place where you can go and get good advice to navigate those situations better and come out better at the end.
That's right, absolutely. Sharing is one of the most important things, having a dialogue with someone. It needs to be an appropriate person as well. Not everyone is appropriate to share your personal experiences with. But if it's the right person, it can actually heal. It can help, it can support, it can provide so much for you. It's much better than to hold it in. I mean, before we start, actually, can I just introduce you, to our wonderful audience? I'm quite new on social media, but I've managed to build up a great fan base, so people do know me by now, which is great. So yes, I mean, we have here Dr. Charlie Cartwright. He's a wonderful, actually, international business consultant, influencer, human influence expert. Is that correct? And
Yes.
I've been listening to all his posts. I think what intrigues me to you is you're the founder of People Success Labs in Kansas. Is that Kansas?
Yes.
Kansas, that's right. So you're creating business models in a humane way for people, which can sustain a better environment in companies and for leaders as well and their staff. Just to make it a bit nicer, a bit warmer, a bit friendlier, and a bit more sustainable, rather than losing a business after 5 years or so, which is wonderful. And the reason why I was drawn to you is I'm a natural empath. And when I heard you talking, you talk with such love and with such, it's so sweet the way how you talk. It's just wonderful the way how you present things and the way how you reflect it. And I thought, I have to get in touch with you. I
Thank
have
you.
to have you on my show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that's a nice compliment. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I give credit where it's deserved.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Was there anything left in your introduction?
Yeah, no, that's really good on the professional side. You know, I think I'm a person that I think something important to know is that, you know, I'm a person that comes from a very challenging upbringing. And when you have a challenging upbringing, that's beyond your control because you're just a child, and you bring those scars, and sometimes those you have a flawed blueprint in how to, because you've had to live a certain way kind of in survival mode, and then when you get into the real world on your own, that blueprint doesn't function very well. And so now it's about finding out where the flaws are and repairing them and then building on the good parts. And so I think it's important to know that about me from a personal standpoint, so that I'm the result of decades of working through these things, and I wasn't always perfect, but I strive to be. I never will be perfect, but I always strive to be. And so,
but who is perfect? That's the point.
Exactly.
You know, there is no perfection. We're human beings. We make mistakes. That is why we came to the world, to choose. And we learn from mistakes. The main point is that you're progressing and what you have become, not what you were born into or what you were brought into.
Yes. So I think it's so important just to know that regardless of your circumstance, you can ascend to a higher plane of thought and just a higher level of your humanity. And then you just appreciate humanity. And I mean all of humanity, not just a certain segment of it. And then also to be empathetic for others that maybe they're at a different place in their journey.
Yeah.
And to give them grace that they're not in, they're not in maybe their best place or their best light.
No, absolutely. I mean, is that something which is public about your past experiences?
A little bit. Every once and it's interesting because every once in a while I'll be asked to speak directly about some things to a specific group. Maybe I'm speaking to a group that's struggling with different things, and so I'll go into a little more detail. But I never want people to feel like the things I've accomplished are unattainable because of where they're starting at. And I think just to know that, wow, it's possible. Whatever your dreams are, your aspirations, it's possible to get there, and to not lose hope, because it's just easy sometimes to get discouraged. And when we get discouraged, then our level of effort goes way down, or maybe even we stop trying. And to know that, keep pushing through that discouragement, and you'll have breakthroughs. And then you'll go to another point, and then you'll get discouraged, and you have another breakthrough, and that's the process. But and then once you know that, it's a beautiful process to kind of like the unfolding of a flower. So, but that's the journey, and that's part of humanity, and it's okay.
And it's absolutely okay. You know, as I said, the progress is important. What you're achieving is important. What is here and now is important. I mean, look what you have achieved. There's not many people who have reached that kind of level as such. You know, if I can relate to you, although not knowing about your history as such. I know you come from a military background. I did do my homework. But other than that, I'm not sure about you know, how much you have gone through, or what form of maybe trauma you have gone through. I talk very openly about my life, not maybe everything, but to extend the details, because I personally believe if I'm working with clients as a therapist, as a mind coach, as a psychologist, who I am, that I cannot be hypocritical. And that doesn't mean that I'm talking in sessions to the clients, but if I'm exploring myself, if I'm working myself about my history, about my past, because these are the things who have made me. I've embraced these experiences. They're not to excuse, but I have embraced these experiences, good or bad, whatever happened, and then turn them into something positive to help people, because I can understand people better. I may have not become the empath who I am if I hadn't gone through these experiences. So, which is why I'm quite open to that, because that is a sign of what I believe, that you have embraced these things. You're not suffering from any trauma, anxiety, or any place which is holding you back no more. You have moved forward. You have evolved. And that's the beauty about that. And I can see that within your aura, even the way how you talk, the entire warmth which comes out, it just reflects these things. And that is what's so beautiful about that.
It's awesome. I agree. And I remember years ago, I'd never spoken publicly about my childhood, but one of my friends had invited me to a conference to speak. And he said, hey, I want you to talk about it today. And I was like, these people don't want to know about that. And he's like, I think you should talk about it. So anyhow, I agreed. And I remember talking about it for the first time. And it was very emotional. But the response was amazing when the people kind of came to the stage. And one of the people in the audience, Dr. Holly Lottie Mann, she's a clinical psychologist. She has like 2 PhDs, 2 master's degrees, very educated, just excellent human being. And I remember she got my business card and she called me about 3 days later and told me that as traumatic as it was, she says, that was your path and you would not be who you are without it. And she says, I don't care how many degrees you have, how much education, how much work experience, there's nothing to simulate that. So you have something, because you went through that, you have a gift you can share with others. And that really hit me. I never thought about it that way at that point. And it's true. So, but again, you've taken something negative and transformed it into something positive. And now you can help others who have different levels of struggles and give them hope. And when people have hope, everything's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you also feel, I feel that working with people, vulnerable people, wherever it's clients, and they could be from all sorts of status, classes, social backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, anything, that when you help them and you feel, or you can see the change, you can see the glow suddenly in their face, you can see a smile, you can see the progress, that they actually help you to heal yourself.
They do.
It's so beautiful. It gives you such a joy.
They do. And I got a call last night, as a matter of fact, from a young man, and he was talking to me about, it was helpful just interacting with me and seeing me speak to his company and organization and how much it meant to him. But to me, when he was in the audience and I saw him focusing and I could see him thinking and growing, that encouraged me, because I was thinking to myself, wow, I wish I knew some of these things when I'm your age. And now, but you're embracing it, and he's got a family, and now he's really doing well in his career. He was doing well before, but he's taken the next step. And he called me in just to share how well things are going, and he's in such a great place and space. And I just feel so proud of him. But it's just nice to have a small contribution of shining a light. And so that that's something that there's no substitute for it. That's something money can't buy, that feeling.
No.
And you've absolutely helped another human being with no expectation of anything in return. But to your point, when you help others, it lifts yourself. It just, it's a byproduct.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we're not selfless people as such. I spoke to my last guest, the about that although we say we're selfless people, we cannot be selfless. We're human beings with needs. We all have needs. And
Yes.
some of the needs are to receive appreciation, to receive a care, to receive some form of return in that way, whether it's emotion, whether it's a smile, it could be anything. So that's what that's what we embrace, and that's what makes us feel better as such. You know, whether it's a healing process, whether it's treating somebody, whether it's just making us feel good in that way. So it is a give and take. It's never one way. It cannot be one way, because that's not what we are. We're social beings. We are needy.
Yes. You said a really important word in there, and it was receive. And we have to, it's not selfish to receive.
No.
And sometimes in society, we feel maybe made to feel guilty about feeling good about something we've done. We should feel good about something we've done. We should feel good about a compliment. So when someone wants to encourage you or express appreciation, I think it's so important to receive it.
Embrace it.
We're honoring, they're giving us a gift, and we're honoring that gift.
That's right.
And in my past, I would have mitigated it. I would have said, well, I would have tried to somehow downplay my impact, but just to say thank you, and I'm happy for you, and I'm so much grateful that it helped you. And now they feel good. They've been able to give you encouragement, and you've received it. Because if someone tries to encourage you and you don't receive it, then you're really doing them a disservice. So I think that's such an important point too. And not everybody's a natural receiver, so you have to learn how to receive, and that's a blessing too.
That's right. And the receiving is the embracing as such. I emphasize on the embracing. That's what it is. I mean, it's the same if we're praying in our own way. You know, we have our own journeys in life towards faith, towards the Almighty, whatever you want to believe in. And the energy which you feel is also a receiving from that. You feel the love, and that's what you want to feel from your environment in the same way, because we need that. We need that to function. We cannot function without it, which is why so many people nowadays are suffering from all these social distancing because of as a result of the pandemic. So we have to actually embrace these things. And I keep putting my post up. The other day I did put up, if somebody makes you feel good, don't reject it, just embrace it.
Yes.
That's the easiest thing to do. And you start smiling, you start glowing, you feel better, your day may go well. You know, all these things just roll on to that. And it's so important. Don't reject anything. Don't keep away something. Just embrace things as they come, whether they're positive or negative. Embrace them and deal with them.
Very true. That's great advice.
So yes, I mean, I'm emotional intelligence expert as such, and I can hear you have developed really well in emotional intelligence, emotional maturity. You know, wonderful to hear, actually. And by the way, I was talking to David Schofield today. He's become somehow a friend of mine now. I'm aware that you have been in contact with each other.
Yes, he sent me a note. He sent me a note I just read before I came on. Said, "Oh, I'm excited you're on the podcast." So that was so neat. Yes.
He suggested some form of quote about reading a book for 52 weeks or something. And he came up with another idea. What about the same book? If you read the same book for 52 weeks, would you not develop within yourself?
So true.
So
true.
It's all about the little things, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. All these, you know, inspiring posts. I just think you don't even need to try hard, and I can see it in your personality. Although whatever you're going through at the moment, you must be tired. You seem to have a hard day, but hopefully I can put a lovely smile in your face. That's always my mission. You see, one is coming already.
That's right.
So no, I loved your tone, and I can hear out even from other podcasts which I was watching about you that you have come a long way, which is absolutely fine. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's part of who you are, and it's part of your own personal development. And look at you, you have developed so wonderfully, you know. Your tone is so warm, your aura is so nice, it just glows, and that's what people need nowadays. We can get so engulfed in our miseries, so easily criticize ourselves, criticize others, but we actually forget that the easiest thing to live and thrive, not just survive, is to be happy, to embrace things, and to smile, to be joyful. Wherever you're going through a hard time, be kind. All these little things which are important. We're forgetting the basics of Maslow's hierarchical needs. And I know you mentioned that in one of your podcasts as well, about love, care, respect, and appreciation. You see, I do my homework.
You did well.
Human basic needs. That's what these things are. We need them. We all need them to thrive to the next level. And I can see you have embraced them so well. That's why you're doing so well. That's why people are listening to you, you know.
So true. And it's amazing that sometimes I remember one day I was sitting and it has been a hard week. And I was sitting there going, is this making any difference? You know, what I'm doing, is this really making any difference? And I shouldn't have said that because, and I said it to myself, but I said that. And I mean, I must have got, I don't know how many instant messages just from people, hey, you don't know me, but I just want you to know. And then I told a friend about it and he says, don't ever say that. This is so important what you're doing. And it's so helpful. You just have no idea.
Yeah.
And so I think that we never know the impact we're having, and we can never know, but to know that if we're putting positive energy back into the world, that it's going to find its way to people that are in need. And that's just, and then when you know that, then I think it just freely flows out, but the intent is to help. And so that's the key, I think.
Yes, it's to help and to bring a change, you know, positive change. That's what it is. I mean, I come from 2 really long relationships, 24 years in total. The first one was a psychopath, a very violent psychopath, and the second one was a narcissist. And if you look at human psychology, empaths are unfortunately magnets of these people because they fulfill their needs because of this over caring, over providing, over loving as such, you know. These people with these personality disorders do have certain needs and which they then grab onto because everything seems to be fulfilled. But the negative side of that is that I have have made them thrive in their disorder as such, you know, in their ways, which has made them even worse towards as the relationship has progressed. And you know, me even being a giver or generally wanting to help, it can drain you because we're all human beings. And once I came out of that, I found I was suffering also with a chronic fatigue syndrome, which couldn't be explained by anyone. It wasn't proven either, but nobody could understand why I was feeling exhausted 24 hours a day. And suddenly when I came out of that, being single for the first time in my life now, quite a while ago now, I just felt liberated. I went through initial anxiety because I've never been single. I didn't know what is going to happen on the other side. But once I came out of that, it was so light, and I felt like I can now thrive. And that's how you know, I always help people, but it just flourished into the next level. I just felt so much lighter and I felt so much at ease. I felt everything was made easier. Although challenges were still there, but everything is made easier. And that's what the progress is. Whatever you're going through in your life, as long as you're actually progressing, even if it's just little steps, that's what counts. You know, you're not stopping in your misery. You're not being held back by your past experiences or memories. You're progressing. You're looking into the light and you're moving forward. That is what counts. And that's what people then hold on to you, because you have come a long way. You have walked through, you're still walking in your journey. We can never complete our journey. But people are holding on to that because they want this positivity. They want this warmth. They want this love.
So true. And to
did I make you think now?
Yeah, and it's so true, and it's so needed where we are today. It's needed more than ever, I think, where we are today. And when in the pandemic, there was just so much here in the States, there was just so much negativity just in everywhere you looked with the media. And I just couldn't sit silent anymore because I was just kind of quietly. And so I started making the videos, and not to make political statements or anything like that, but just to show a different path and to show a different light and a different energy. And that's made a big difference.
And I can see that in the comment section which you receive, all the feedback, that it does make a difference. And as you said, you never know who you can touch at that time. I mean, I receive a lot of direct messages as well as feedback from people who I would have never expected them to do, how it has helped them or impacted them in a certain situation which they were going through. You would have never thought they would be going through that, but they have. And if a little post like this can help them, just to even give them a little comfort, nothing else than comfort, like a little hug or something, or like giving them a little safety, or like you're sitting in the lounge on the sofa watching a little movie and giving them a hug, sort of. That's what it's about. That's what we need. We need that comfort. We need that warmth. And if someone can provide that without even words, so be it.
Yes, it just gives people, it helps sustain, and just provides that encouragement, and then people gain courage from being encouraged. And it's a beautiful thing to see, because sometimes just that little small nudge, that's all people need to kind of break through where they're stuck and get them moving again. So it's great. And I think that over time, love always prevails in the end. And so over time, just to see it grow and that ripple effect that you have, because I know, like the gentleman that I talked to yesterday, he has a small child. And so the lessons he's going to teach that child are going to come into the world in a positive way. And that's exciting, because it's just so important to increase that level in our consciousness, in our society, because I think that the other voices tend to be so loud, and that people that are loving and kind tend to be kind of quiet. And I think, not to brag or anything like that, but it just needs to be spoken about a bit more. Absolutely. And so that people know that's okay too, that you're kind and loving and empathetic person, and it's really not weakness, it's actually strength.
It is, because people are forgetting that this is more needed than anything else for us at the moment, not just at the moment, in general. We all need that. I mean, if you go back to childhood development and developmental psychology, how important are the first few years for a child to have these secure attachments with their caregivers, and that's no different than being an adult. We do not come out of these needs. We do need them. We are social beings. We are not made to live in a solidarity. We're made to live together. We're made to love each other. We're made to hug each other. We're made to feel each other. That's what it's about. I mean, I personally come from a Asian background. My family have come from 3 different explosive countries, possibly also Persian descendants too, mixed in somewhere. But it's Kashmiri, India, and Pakistan. So three very explosive countries. And in that culture, it's quite difficult to break this barrier about differences. They're very engulfed within their own culture, where I'm most probably the odd one out. I don't see the person for how they look like or where they come from, what status they come from, what culture they come from, what race they come from, because we're all a human race. That's what we're misconceiving. We're not a different race, we're one race.
It's true.
The animal race is a different race. We're just a human race. And we have all blood in our veins. We have, we are born the same way. We die all. There's no differences as such. So why bother looking at these differences, which should be actually beautiful? It's nice to have differences. Otherwise, the world would be boring.
Yes.
So if I look at the person and decide whether I like the person for who they are as a character. I don't like the person, regardless of where they come from or how they look like, doesn't matter. And that's what I have embraced in my children as well. They embrace anyone. They're not allowed to use any color, any derogatory terms, because it's not been taught to them. And I think more people should be embracing these things, because that's what makes us human. And that's what should make us different from the animal race as well, although animals are more loyal than we human beings are.
Yes.
But in general, we need to understand that we're one species, and that's the beauty about that.
I agree 100%. I was just looking at some information the other day, and every human being shares 99.9% of the same DNA. And it's that 0.1% that gives us all this beautiful variety. But at the end of the day, there's one anatomy book for everyone, right? There's not separate anatomy books based on what country
That's
you
right.
were born in. It's human anatomy, physiology, it's all the same. And so it's just so important to know that. And we have so much more in common than we have that are differences, but it seems like the differences get magnified and the commonality really gets minimized.
I mean, it's a psychology, isn't it? It's psychology again, because we're part of tribes. That's what creates these differences. And there's not many people who come out of a bystander effect. Are you aware of that term as such? Most people like to stay in their tribe, wherever it's their culture, wherever it's the country, wherever it's their race, wherever it's the family they've been brought up with, wherever it's just being in a certain environment. And anything outside of that tribe becomes a threat. It's the unknown. And there's very few people who like to step out in the unknown, to look at a different perspective, to look at the world with a different viewpoint. And that's when the beauty comes about, because most people are just confined. They're full of fear. What will happen if I disappoint this person, or if I disappoint my upbringing, or if I disappoint my culture? If I was to disagree with that, if I was to come out of that, and that is what we need to break as such. The few people who have come out, like yourself and myself, to engage with these people and educate people to say it's okay. There's nothing wrong to come out. Nothing is going to happen to you. On the contrary, it's just going to embrace your life. Look at me. I'm so happy. Why am I so happy? I'm not living in misery. Although challenges come my way, which is natural, you just deal with them. And you engage with people, regardless of who they are.
Yes. And it's interesting too, because when you put that energy out, then it reflects back to you, and it also works in the negative side of the equation too. And I read this quote, I think it was Dyer that put the quote out. He said, some people live in a hostile world and other people live in a loving world, same world. And it's true. It's your perspective and how you choose to embrace what you do with that. And it's just it's a truth. And I think the more that you really open yourself up to learning about others, learning about other cultures, then the beauty of the world, it just starts to color, it starts to it's like turning colors on, turning music on, turning uh, light on, or aromas or flavors. All of these things start to just enhance your life. I remember I gave a speech before the pandemic. I was in California, and it was a medical group, and I gave a speech. And a lot of times medical groups, they have a conference, they do it on the weekend because they don't want to close during the week. So it was on a Saturday. And I remember standing in front of that audience, and it was probably about 200 men and women. And I looked out, and I just remember thinking to myself, this is the future of the world. It was so diverse. There were just so many tones and shapes, height, weight, just an imagine. No two people looked alike, but it was a beautiful thing. And I was just looking out and going, wow, this is amazing. This is humanity represented in this room, what it really looks like to be together. And everybody was there for the common reason, functioning, getting along well, learning and growing. And that was, I was like, this is what the future looks like. And it's a beautiful thing.
It's very nice. It's like a flower bouquet, a beautiful flower bouquet, which you put together. The flowers themselves, when they're separated, they are beautiful, but they're still just one color. But once you put them together, you just create magic. And that's what it's about. You create magical ways, you create magical moments, magical events. I mean, I'm actually quite intrigued, especially now. From the last 10 years, I've met so many people from various backgrounds working in the mental health sector. I come from the diplomatic sector. I was a German diplomat before. I worked as a banker as well in my young age. And working in the diplomatic sector, it's a very hierarchical structure. So they like to be leveled. They like to have their status. I was the odd one out anyway, because the only brown looking person from 8,000 diplomatic staff around the world. But because of the way how I am, I didn't care really. If somebody was asking me where you come from, I just say, I come from that part of Germany. So they asked me again, where do you come from? I come from that part of Germany. So they asked me again, where do you really come from? Well, do you want to know where I come from, or do you want to know where my ancestors come from? So be precise.
Yes. Yes.
So that is the beauty about things, working with so many different people from so many different backgrounds. In the mental health sector, I see so many different cultures and behavioral attitudes and personalities, all sorts of different things, which just enriches you even more. And you think your little problems or your little sufferings which you're going through, which may have seen before so big, no, there's always someone who has gone through a lot worse than you.
Yes.
And that's what makes you reflective in these things. I'm a multilingual as well, and I always say to people that languages are not just words. You learn the culture, you learn different behavioral attitudes, you learn behavioral science, you learn the country, you learn people. It's so beautiful in that way that your understanding just grows, it just flourishes as such. And that's what we need to embrace more. We need to be more laughing with each other, talking. Even heated discussions are fine, as long you don't become you start using any derogatory terms as such. But dialogue is so important. Talking, and I can see you coming back with your glow now.
Yes.
Smiling.
Yes. I remember before the pandemic traveling to Toronto, Canada to speak. And I was at the hotel, and of course, English speaking. and I was wanting to get change for the vending machine, and there was a language barrier. And I kept repeating what I was saying. And luckily, one of the hosts was with me. And I said, well, I'm asking for change. And he said, well, they're trying to give you change. I said, well, what do you mean? And so, but the lady behind the counter, she said it so quickly, I didn't catch it. And she, when I had the Canadian money and I wanted to get change for the vending machine, she said very quickly, loonies and toonies, but she said it very fast. And I said, well, I need change, loonies and toonies. And so I thought she was speaking a different language. And so she's like, well, what do you call them? She says, well, she's talking about ones and twos. She says, what do you call them in the States? I said, ones and twos. So loonies and toonies, it was just a funny, and it's a symbol on the coin, and $1 and $2. But I didn't know, but it just kind of enhanced. And it was a funny, we all laughed about it, but I'm just, just a little bit south here, but I didn't, it was like she was speaking a different language. And it was a fun event. But yeah, loonies and toonies, I still have some, by the way. So when I go back, I'll have some change that I take.
You will know by now.
Yes, it's so
Do
funny.
Do you speak any other languages?
No, English is my native. And it's interesting because I remember in college, well, in high school, I took a Spanish class, and I was transferred because I took a sign language class and there wasn't enough kids that signed up. So they canceled the sign language class, and then I was transferred into the Spanish class. Well, back in those days, if you got transferred into a class, it's because you were a problem in another class. So the teacher looked at me like, don't you cause any problem. So when she gave me that look, I said, you know what, I'm going to make sure I get an A in this class. And so I did get an A in the class, but I never took it again because I didn't want to study every night. You have to study every night. And I was like, oh, I don't want to work that hard in studying. And then now I wish I would have stayed with that course because there's such a large Spanish speaking population in the United States. And then I wanted to take, and again, in college, I wanted to take Chinese. And once again, there wasn't enough people sign up, so they canceled it. That would be very helpful too now. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but either one of those languages would have been magnificently helpful. Thankfully, most business people around the world will speak English. And so that's a saving grace for me.
I had to learn English. I mean, not by academics as such. I was thrown into that because Germans, I don't know if you know much about Germans, they don't speak much other languages, they speak German. And because their education as such and their professions are so well accepted all over the globe, they just create their own communities wherever they go. So they have no real need. And I'm not talking about they can't speak it at all, anything else, but it's very limited. So there's only very few people who do speak other languages, including English. And when I came to England as such, I mean, I speak other languages anyway, but I was very basic in English. It was, something which you would learn in school for 1-2 years, and you don't really understand things. It's just a very, very minimal basic. So that's how I came to London. I was posted to the German embassy, and I came to London. I didn't have the need at that time to talk much English because most of the diplomatic staff was German anyway. So once I left the embassy, then circumstances changed and I was kind of thrown into the UK. That's when I thought I have to get on with that now. Yes. And that's how I've learned English, just by talking. I mean, I met my now former partner at that time. He was working as a local staff in the embassy. And because I didn't have no other choice than to talk English, you can't speak any other language neither. I was thrown into the situation and just had to pick it up. And it was quite interesting, actually, because I don't speak slang. I like to speak or pronounce the word or the term for how it is. and like to learn language correctly. But he was a South Londoner, and he had a very strong South London slang, and he was also, you know, on the road, knew all these different terms. But I was unaware of that, so many jokes would just go over my head. I wouldn't even understand them. Which was good in a way, because if somebody wanted to be rude to me, I wouldn't get it anyway. But yes, no, that's how I learned English as such, and then went to university here as well. Done my psychology degree, which was another challenge, because it's a very different system. Although UK is very close to Germany, it's very different. So these challenges, besides personal challenges, have come across. But as long as you have the willpower, as I've seen also in your personal career as such, you can manage anything you want. Nothing holds you back.
It's true. It's so true. And all those challenges end up being, when you look back, they actually strengthened you and prepared you for your future and for your future opportunities that would have passed you by had you not went through those difficulties. And so sometimes I think that we go through difficulties because we wouldn't voluntarily sign up for them, right? But you need those lessons for a particular time in your life. Then when you get to that stage, you're like, oh, I'm glad I went through that back then, because now I know what to do in this situation. So
that's right.
is.
I mean, if you're always gifted, or if you're always privileged by good things happening to you, you would never be able to compare how much you've done or what you have achieved, because there would be nothing to compare with. It's the highs and lows in life, it's the challenges in life with the good things in life which are happening to us, where we can actually compare, make a comparison on measuring our strengths. You know, that's what it's about. We cannot measure anything if we haven't got nothing to measure with that, and nothing will become or create any value in your life, because you haven't got anything to compare that to. So we do need these things.
It's true. We do. We really do. And it's as challenging as it is, it's essential, very essential part of growth. And people sometimes look at failure and think that it's a bad thing. And I thought that for a long time, especially in my younger days growing up, and even a young adult. Anytime I failed at anything, that I thought it was bad, and it meant that I wasn't cut out for that or wasn't good enough. And now I know that failure is a prerequisite for success, sustained success. If you come out and you're successful right away, you don't know what you don't know, and you're not going to be able to sustain that. But when you've had those highs and lows, then you figure out how to stay more on an even keel, and that's sustainable because of your failures. And it's a requirement, and it's not the opposite of success, it's a part of it. So to your point, embracing those failures and learning from them, there's some of your best opportunities to learn. There's a John Wooden quote that I call to mind, and he said, you know, a human being, how did he put it? When they're going through adversity is when a human being becomes the most acquainted with themselves, being especially free of admirers then, right?
Absolutely.
So true. And so you really get to know yourself, and which is important. Then you can build there and see what's truly in that mirror and make the adjustments as needed and move forward. So it's a beautiful evolution.
And I know you have a very similar way in working with people about that, you know, unblocking your mind.
Yes.
Just exploring it. It's like a world in there. You have to try to find doorways. You walk the alleyway, you look to your right, you look to your left, you look to your front, you look to your back. All these different experiences, memories, situations, events, attitudes, whatever it is, you have to connect them to each other and find out where it's lacking, what is holding you back. And that is why what my expertise is in a similar way, not in the business manner how you're doing it. It's more on a personal level with one-to-one clients, but very, very similar, because what we misconstrued as such or don't understand is, and hopefully you can agree with that, we are our biggest obstacle. No one else is.
It's true.
If we focus on the problem, we will always be stuck on the problem. If we focus on the solution, we will find our way.
It's so true. And I think too that as adults, we tend to complicate things.
Yeah.
We look for a very, very complicated solution when the reality is all those little things you spoke about are fundamental. They're principles. And I remember a friend of mine said this, and he was quoting, I think, someone from the past, but I give him the credit because he's the one that said it. But he said to me one day, we're talking about these things, and he said, Dr. Charlie, principles are too important to be new. Yeah. Right? And so when we get back to these fundamental things that make us whole and that make us, not only ourselves feel good, but help us interact and make others feel good about themselves, that's always the path, very fundamental. Then the big, the little things that we do on a daily basis, they lead to the big changes, they lead to the big impacts and the big outcomes. I had the gentleman that called me yesterday, he left a company that I had done work with. And he said he was disappointed because they had the frontline supervisors in the training, but the VPs of the company, they were too busy. Well, that was where a big part of the problem was. So he ended up leaving, but before he left, he'd been with this organization for 16 years. So he cut his teeth in that business, learned everything he knew, become this valuable supervisor. And he ran jobs, but he didn't have the title. And he was running these jobs and he wasn't getting the commensurate pay. And so when he inquired about it, said, hey, there's people that they're getting the pay and they have the title and they've been here less time than me. And I have this track record. And he questioned it. And he said, so he got, of course, passed around. Then he gets to this vice president, and it's not a huge company, but he gets to this vice president and he's talking to him and he keeps calling him a different name. And so finally he stops him. He says, what's my name? And he says, I've been here 16 years and you don't even know my name. That's fundamental. That's basic. It's not all this complexities. And so, of course, as a human being, he's like, well, if you don't know my name, then you don't really value me. So instead of rectifying the position, they stopped having him run these jobs. So guess what? He was recognized and another organization said, well, hey, we'd like to start that practice over here. Would you come and run it for us? What's it going to cost? So here he's in such a better situation. He left that situation, but because they missed these fundamentals, they lost a very loyal employee. And then of course, his team followed him. So he's doing really well, and they lost a good group of people because those fundamentals aren't being practiced. And it's really so simple to connect with other human beings if we put the effort in, and instead of looking for this complex solution, hello, how are you, talking to people, calling them the right name, being genuinely interested in who they are and their careers and their families and their aspirations and their challenges. And it just opens up the people in the world, and then the relationships are just priceless that you build as a result of truly connecting with another human being.
I mean, you have stated that very beautifully. Sometimes we fall, or sometimes things happen to us which seem negative because something is greater waiting for us, and that's exactly what happened in the case of this gentleman. It's not his loss that he wasn't recognized in that company. He was too valuable to that company, probably. It's their loss, and they will remember that because he's progressing in that other company and he's been in demand in that other company and he has probably reached a higher position in that other company. So as long as you recognize and it comes back to embracing again your own value, your own being, you know, your own kindness, your own love, your own ability, that's when you're actually breaking these barriers of societal pressure, of societal expectations. You don't see yourself anymore as someone else sees you. You're not reflecting yourself on someone else's expectations. You're just looking inside you and you're finding your own beauty, you're finding your own skills, you're finding your own talent, and you're telling yourself, you're giving yourself the recognition. No, I have this value. I do deserve that. And that's where this positive then change comes about, because if you stay back in this negativity or in this mindset where you don't feel comfortable enough to progress, you're missing the opportunity. You might have never got or taken on this opportunity. You may have refused it because you were still living in this past and questioning why it has happened to you. So when we're leaving these things and we're moving forward and we're understanding ourselves better, that's when we progress. That's when we evolve, and that's what things happen. You know, the magic happens, as I call it. I call it the Shapak effect.
Yes, and it's amazing. A friend of mine said this to me years ago. She said it's important to go where you're celebrated, not tolerated.
That's right.
And so the same individual, the same skill set that you had over here that's tolerated is celebrated and embraced over here. Yeah. And so changing the environment sometimes, but again, to your point, recognizing your value, and just because someone else doesn't value you doesn't mean that you're not valuable. It just means they don't value you. Then you come over here and then you're celebrated. And to your point, it just elevates. And he's like, he is having fun working, and the crew, they said, we love working together and we are making our mark and our work is being recognized. And that's just so fulfilling that you get recognition for a job well done.
Yeah, and that's important. That doesn't just apply to jobs. In my case, with working with clients, it applies to your personal life as well. You know, you can put it to romantic relationships, for instance, even the relationship I just left, because I wasn't valued there. It doesn't mean that I wasn't worth it. I just think that person didn't deserve me, or that relationship didn't deserve me, so I move on. And that's what people need to understand. If something is holding you back, and actually you need to analyze yourself. If it's making you feel bad, if it's bringing you down, then something is wrong where you're at. And I think one of your clips did demonstrate that with the tree in Nevada. I can't remember the name of the tree.
Yes, you're right, the sequoia trees. You did a lot of homework. You did a lot of homework. I was so amazed when I saw that. Because I've always been fascinated by those trees, but to imagine that they only grow in one place naturally in the world and at a specific elevation, 5,000 to 7,000 feet above sea level, and they're the largest tree in the world. They get over 350 feet tall, and it's some crazy number how much they weigh. Like, you know, how many million pounds they weigh. I don't know how many stones that is, but it's millions. And but it's the right location for them to flourish, and then they can become. But if we tried to put those in Kansas, it wouldn't work out. Now, here's something interesting. It's very unique about the trees. I've always, in school, I remember being taught that however tall the tree is, that's how deep the root system is. So I was like, wow, those roots must really go down. So I wanted to look it up. That's one of the unique things about them. The roots only go down 15 feet.
Right.
So it's incredible for a tree of that stature. So we have a lot of wind in Kansas, so that wouldn't work. You know, for this tree, and the tornadoes and the high winds that we have here. But again, they can do that because they're surrounded by other like-minded, right? And so here they are in this specific element where they can thrive. And so even the largest tree in the world only thrives in the right location. And we're human beings the same. Yeah, we can survive in these other locations, but to thrive, we really need to surround ourselves in an environment that we can do so.
That's right. And surviving is not enough. That is the point. We need to find a way to thrive. Only then we feel fulfilled. Some people feel, if they're very devoted to their own religion, for instance, that the more they pray, they become, or they thrive. I'm not saying it's wrong as such. They may feel that way, but it's not the only solution, because otherwise we would have to confine or lock ourselves in a room and not be in contact with our environment in order to fulfill that, like some faiths actually do. But to embrace the environment, that's why we are been put in this world as such. We must embrace things. We must embrace our environment. Otherwise, it comes back to the measure. We wouldn't be able to measure any good or bad, any challenges in our life, any success in our life, or any level of these things, if we cannot have these distances, if we cannot be challenged, or if we are not put across these things. We need to be able to move, and we need to explore, we need to challenge, we need to find, we need to embrace. That's the only way to go through. And once you start thriving, you just evolve. It just becomes more beautiful, and the world becomes more beautiful.
It does. And that's another thing I learned about those trees, is their seeds are in these kind of honeycomb shaped,
Right.
and the seeds can't be released without fire.
Right.
And when the fire comes, the heat it clears out the brush below. The trees are so tall and massive that they can withstand that, and then it causes they're like pine cone, they're cone shaped, and those seeds drop into this fertile soil that's been mulched up with the fire, and now you have more of these sequoia trees that come up. And so in our personal life and professional life, sometimes we go through fire, but that fire is necessary for growth. And so there are just so many metaphors that apply to the human experience. And I thought that was really interesting, because here, it's a forest fire, we have to put it out. Well, it's actually, in some cases, it's a natural process. Lightning strikes, there's a fire, but those trees need that fire to thrive.
That's right. I think that part was missing in your clip. The clip was most probably not long enough, which you have added now. But it is absolutely that we do need these things to thrive. Sometimes when we're and it comes back to this tribal feeling again. If we are familiar with the situation, it could be our misery, it could be even being in an abusive relationship, it could be domestic violence, it could be childhood trauma, anything you could think of, or even a bad job, we don't like it. If we're just in this environment and don't actually, no one or nothing shakes us as such, we may never come out. We just live, we exist, we don't live as such. But once something strikes us, and once something is put as a very shake up method as such, wherever somebody shakes you up, the boss treats you wrongly, like in your case, your client, or you don't get the recognition, or I come out of my relationship and recognize or realize suddenly it's not for me, it's not right to be in there, it's just not correct. That's when you then realize you have to come out, you have to create a change for yourself, because this is not what life's about. We can make life so beautiful if we wanted to, and why not? Because it can attract so many other people towards that light, which you're then projecting, and helps then your environment as well as yourself.
Yes. It's one of those things that gives other people permission to do the same.
Yeah.
I think it's Marianne Williamson that talks about that. Instead of holding back, we give when we strive to thrive, then we give other people permission to do the same.
It's maybe not just permission, it's also encouragement.
Yes.
Because what we need more is encouragement rather than permission. Often people ask for permission and they're too scared or too fearful to take that step. But if somebody who's out of these things actually encouraging them and showing them that it works, that's what motivates somebody else to follow that path. So if you, in your case, what you're doing with leaders as such to follow or create a pathway, others will follow. Once you fulfill yourself and find your pathway, everybody else will follow. They will look onto that. You start loving yourself, you start respecting yourself, you start understanding yourself, and you move forward. And everyone would want a piece of that. They would want to hold on to this light.
Yes, it's when you start to feel great about yourself, it's really addictive. And when you start to interact with people in a genuine way, and then they respond in kind, again, it's addictive and you want to do more of it. And that's good in a good way. You're like, wow, this has really changed how people view me or how they interact with me or react to me. And I love that. I just love that environment.
And you know what the good thing about that is? That it's not just about people who want to be that way or who love how you are. It's also people who maybe challenge you in that way, because your reaction becomes very different, absolutely different. If somebody attacks you, you change your perspective. You don't react to it normally. You do it in a very different way. You may analyze it, or you may directly speak to them. I didn't like that. Why did you say that, for instance? Many people are just fearful of saying these things. But it's about passing your fear. It's about, just overcoming this fear and just going for it, going into the unknown, explore it, and find out what happens. You never know what happens until you explore it.
Yeah, that's so true. Because sometimes when people do respond negatively and you enter into a dialogue and it's different than they expected, right? Because they're expecting you to come back with something sharp, and you don't, and then you come back logically and ask questions, or then sometimes you can explain it and they're like, oh, okay, and I misunderstood. Or other times maybe there's still disagreement there, but the fact that you didn't match that negative energy, it really kind of stops them in their tracks because you didn't feed into it.
That's right. And it's okay to agree to disagree.
Yeah. And then it's not fun anymore because you're not responding negatively. And so they don't get a rise out of you. They just move on. I remember there was someone was following me, and then he was like, every day he would write something negative. And I ignored it first. And then I remember finally I had to respond to him, and then we had an exchange, not negative, but just back and forth. And I would and he would say something negative, and I explained why that is. And then it was like, okay, well, hey, I appreciate your opinion. Well, then he just gave up because, again, it's no fun to not get a rise. And I'm sure that's but he would just look for anything. And, well, you left all this out and this and that. And I was like, well, they limit my post to 1,200 character, whatever they limit you on the character. I said, I can't, it's limited to 1,200 characters. So I try to cut it, or my videos, it's 3 to 5 minutes. If I talk about it for an hour, no one will listen. But if I take it to 3 minutes and then I talk about that same subject 20 times for 3 minutes, people will watch that, but they won't watch 60 minutes straight.
Yeah.
So you just have to adjust your message. But to your point, when you just embrace it, you learn things and you get better. And then the next time someone challenges, you just know how to better navigate that situation. I remember the first time that I watched this video, and it was about these comedians and how what they did when someone heckled them. From the name of it was called Heckler, and this guy made a video and he interviewed all these comedians about what they did with hecklers. And you know, some of it was kind of extreme, the things people like got out of the audience and attacked the comedian physically and all this. And so I remember the first time someone heckled me in the front row, and I was like, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, he's heckling me. And so then I remember, oh, you got to address him. And so I remember standing right there, and it was kind of surprised him. He didn't say anything else for the rest of the deal. Then I was in Washington, D.C., and someone got angry from the back row. And interestingly, it was the first time that I'd done all this research about love. And I asked the audience, there was a bunch of leaders in this room, about 100, and I asked them if they love their people.
Oh.
And the room went silent. And I just waited them out. And it went silent, and it stayed silent. So then I said, hey, this is not a rhetorical question. I would like an answer. And I kept waiting. I would not. And finally, a few minutes go by, and a guy in the back of the room yelled, "This is ridiculous." And I was like, is it ridiculous? Yeah, it's ridiculous. Why is it ridiculous? He said, of course we love our people. I said, of course you do. Yeah. I said, okay, one more question. Do your people know it? You go quiet. They don't know it unless we show it.
No. I mean, it's the same with the child and the mother, or a child and the father. If you don't show love, or you don't express your love to your child, the child is not going to automatically know it.
Exactly.
So why do we forget it when we become adults? We have these needs, and when we're little, we're born into that. These are innate needs, which we have. We need to hear things. We need to hear emotions. Someone who's closed up could be loving you as to the world, you know. But if he doesn't show affection to you, if he doesn't express themselves to you, you will always feel that person is hiding something, or he's not loving me, or he doesn't have real feelings for me, or maybe I'm not good enough. All these kind of emotions can go through your mind. So why are we forgetting that when we become human beings, we become so enclosed within each other that we automatically assume that the other person should know? No, it comes from expression. It comes from affection. It needs to have executing human behavior as such, you know, wherever it's our smile, wherever it's the glow in our face, wherever it's sweet words, which we say, wherever it's just seeing someone and giving them a really good warm hug. I'm a big hugger, by the way. Everybody loves my hug. So it's just needed for us. It's just needed. We do need these things to know that we're taken care of. We feel comfortable. We're safe. It comes back to Maslow's hierarchical needs. These are basic needs of the human being. The same way we need to eat, we need to breathe, we need to have drink, we need to sleep. We also need these things. We need emotion.
Very true. And it's interesting too that people, in the absence of that feedback, they'll fill the gap in with the negative.
Yeah.
People aren't going to fill it in with a positive emotion or a positive thought. They're going to assume you don't like me, you don't care about me,
That's right.
You don't respect me, you don't appreciate me. I mean, they're going to fill that out. So it's so important to make sure that we communicate how we feel about people. And it's just good. I don't ever want to, you always want to leave on a good note with people, and as good as possible. And whenever I, have a friend pass away or a relative pass away, you're always sad. But then I always automatically think about, when's the last time I spoke to them? How was that interaction? and I want to make sure I can feel good about that. So I try to leave on that positive and let people know how I feel about them. And it's just so important because you never know.
No,
We
no.
always assume, but tomorrow's not promised. You never know. So why not capitalize on the time that we have with our friends, our coworkers, our loved ones, and never forfeit an opportunity to show care, respect, appreciation, love, all of those things that are so vital for our well-being as human beings.
And the good thing which you pointed on, it's a very, very key point, what people are forgetting: time. Time is to give your time is so valuable. It means so much for the other person, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or you taking your time to go out for a coffee. I do that with my friends or with my family. Just to take that time for somebody else is so valuable. No money in the world can buy these things, no matter how hard you try. And that's where all these engagements come from, these dialogues come from, the care comes from, the affection comes from, emotions come from, expressions come from. I mean, I have a little example about that. My neighbor next door, as we're going through all this COVID time and pandemic, she was 92. She was just coming to 93. And since I moved into this area, it's a lovely area here. It's beautiful with people who have lived here from the 60s and never moved out. So most pensioners, but lovely, lovely people. It's even so nice. In London, you have to be very careful that somebody wouldn't break in your door. But here, if I left my key outside the door, which I have done in the beginning quite a few times, the postman comes and reminds me on that. That's how beautiful it is. It's just a lovely area. And my neighbor next door, she's on her own. She was on her own, English lady. And often she didn't know what to do because she was missing her son, who was living a bit further away, and she didn't see him as much. She was just on her own. Her husband passed away a few years ago, and she just felt lonely. And I made her so comfortable because I've grown up in the way that you need to look after your environment. Charity starts at home. If I don't look after my environment, how good am I as a person in general? I need to know what's going on and I need to take responsibility for that. So my environment includes my neighbors, for instance. If they're in need, I feel responsible in helping them as long as I can do that. And so I used to reassure her every time she couldn't turn the telly off, for instance, didn't know how to do that or forgotten. Or sometimes she just wanted to have a little chat. Oh, would you like to tea? Or she didn't know how to open the washing machine or how to operate the washing machine. She would just forget different things because she was on her own. Or sometimes she just had falls. I have seen her many times coming to my door, and I've offered her many times. Don't even think about it. Don't feel any time of the day or night. If you need help, you come and knock on my door or you give me a ring. And many times she was full-blooded everywhere, and she would knock on my door, and because she had a fall and she didn't know what to do, I call her in and call the ambulance, wash her. I don't feel any kind of hesitance in that way because I feel I'm young and I have to look after my elders. That's just how I've been brought up. If I don't do that, it might come back to me when I'm old and no one will be there for me. So you have to think it in that way. So I was doing all of these things, and many times she would just call me up or ask me to come over to because she couldn't open the milk bottle. She couldn't close the fridge. Just silly things like this, but it would just help her to have this dialogue, to have someone there to give her this reassurance. And that's what's important. We're forgetting about all these little things. Taking care of each other can be so important. And coming back to what we were talking, that when you didn't have these moments, this lady now passed away on COVID, unfortunately. She had a very bad fall at one time, and then she recovered from that. But after that fall, she started suffering with some form of dementia. And often she would be on the road in her 90s and didn't know where she was. She would be confused. And on one night, she knocked on my door. I was doing something. I didn't hear it. So she went to next door neighbor and knocked on her door, and that lady then called the police, seeing her in that state in the night here. It was cold outside. And the police then called the ambulance, and the ambulance then engaged with social services, and they took her overnight to a nursing home. Unfortunately, the nursing home did confuse her a bit too much at that time, because she didn't know which environment she was in. Suddenly she was out of her home. Everything was different. After a while, she did start enjoying it. She familiarized herself. But unfortunately, a few months ago, through a staff member who brought in COVID, she contracted COVID, and she was 93 almost. She didn't survive that. But it was quite a tragic moment for me. I went to a funeral and, paid my condolences, paid my respects, and I kind of still feel this void, because I felt it was a lovely lady, it was a part of your life. But at the same time, when I reflect back, coming back to what you were saying earlier, if I didn't have these moments with her, and I would have thought, oh, someone next door died on COVID, an old lady, and I never had this relationship with her, I would feel guilty about that. So you cherish these nice moments, even for yourself, stating that no, there has been some lovely things, we haven't missed out on anything, or I haven't actually not fulfilled my responsibility, for instance. So that's the beauty. If everybody would be thinking that way, and that's not hard to do so, the world would be such a better place.
It would be. And everything you said is very sustainable. It's very doable. It's not hard, and it just takes time and effort, and you it's just so rewarding to help other people in small ways. And I enjoy, whenever I have the opportunity to do that, I enjoy it, and I hope to continue to do that for a long time to come.
I'm pretty sure, smiling and embracing happiness prolongs your life as well. So you will have lots of years to come, I'm pretty sure.
Very true. So
it creates happy hormones.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So all these lessons learned and being able to apply them and help others with those lessons is so important. So it's exciting time for sure.
That's wonderful. I can see we're talking almost for an hour and a half now.
It goes quickly, doesn't it?
It does. I hope it didn't become boring at some point.
Oh, no. I always tell my clients when they ask me, well, how long do you want to, well, we want you to speak on this. How long do you want? I said, well, I can talk all day. So
yeah.
Tell me what you want, because I can talk all day. They always laugh. Okay, well, how about... But no, I enjoy talking about these things and learning, and obviously meeting you here through this is awesome, because I think that, pretty much every human being has something to teach us.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, are we open to that, receiving those lessons? And some people teach us what to do, and other people teach us what not to do. Yeah. But it's still all valuable. So I always I love meeting people and learning about their backgrounds and things they're overcoming, because then that's still encouraging to me. So the fact that you have said, hey, I was here and I've done these things, that's encouraging to me too, because anytime someone has succeeded in overcoming an obstacle, you're like, I can do that too. And it just gives you a little boost, and those boosts add up.
They do at the end. I mean, you've described that in one of your posts with a tree, to build up the foundation, and then you go from there and build the branches, and just expand from there and become stronger. And that's what life is about. Another homework I've done.
Oh, you have done. Yeah, because I was just talking about that. Wow, was that yesterday? I was speaking to someone. It was a couple of days ago, I think, and we were talking about the bamboo tree. That was Sunday. And we're talking about the Chinese bamboo tree that above the surface for the first 5 years, there's little to no growth. You see this little tiny sprout But meanwhile, those 5 years is establishing this root system. And then when it hits year 5, that tree grows 80 feet in 6 weeks.
That's the Freud theory as such, looking at the subconsciousness and the consciousness. The consciousness just seems very small above the surface, but it's actually the groundwork below which creates it, which strengthens it, where all the work has gone in, where all the preparation has gone in.
Mm-hmm. So true. And then it supports that growth. And so
yeah,
that's a lot about the evolution of being a human being. And I was laughing with a friend, and that was Sunday too, a different phone call, and he just got some great news. And he's been working so long in his career, and I said, hey, overnight success only takes about 30 years. And he's like, you're right, it's true.
I mean, it took me that long. Having to go through such long relationships. People have actually told me, why didn't you actually separate before? I think everyone needs to find their own time, when it's the right time to do so. Because I come from very old school ways. You don't just give up something. You work through that. You try all the ways. You try all the possibilities until nothing can be done. Then you walk away. But at least I can't say, or don't question myself to say I haven't tried in any way. And so sometimes it just takes a little longer. That's another post I've watched of yours, to come to that point, because you have to go through all these enriched experiences to find yourself, to know who you are, to come to that point, because you never know how you will turn out if you move away too quickly.
It's true.
You could become a very different person. You don't know.
Very true. Yeah, those divergent paths.
Yeah.
And when you take the right path, then it's very rewarding. And then you see further down the road, and there's going to be more paths and more opportunities to grow and improve. But it all starts with taking those little steps along the way. And then when you get to those decision points, then because of everything you've gone through, you're better able to make appropriate decisions.
That's absolutely right. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met you, for instance. If I wasn't a coach, if I wasn't a psychologist, I would have met you.
There you go. There you go. Born on other sides of the world. But this is the amazing thing about the time we're in. We can be on the other side of the world, but still come together. And, we have mutual human experience in common. And it's so true. People all over the world. And,
the world is so small. That's the point.
It is. It's a global community now. And I just always remember that. And when I have an opportunity to remind leaders of that too, that it's not just the States. We're in a global community. And so we need to be responsible global citizens, and then embrace our global community, because we're all going to get better. We share the planet. And so we are all going to get better together. But however, if we're doing things to harm one another or the planet, we all suffer from that, the consequences.
Yes, we can see that. I mean, that is how I met David Schofield as well. I mean, it's been actually quite funny. We had a podcast too a few weeks ago. You must watch that on my YouTube channel on Psych Chefback. It's been so funny because we were talking about serious matters, but because I'm quite humorous, he's quite humorous, we were bouncing off each other. It just felt like we found a really old friend as such, because of a similar kind of humor. And we were just laughing through that, although we never knew each other before.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And, now we're texting all the time about different jokes and different things, what's happening. That's how he found out that I'm podcasting you.
Yeah, that is awesome, because I did get his note earlier, and I was like, it's a small world. It really is a small world.
Which part in the States are you?
So I'm in Kansas, and so we're right in the middle. And then I'm in a town called Olathe, Kansas. And so we're probably 20 miles south of Kansas City, Missouri / Kansas City, Kansas. So pretty close to state line from Kansas and Missouri. And we're a suburb of Kansas City, so probably 130,000 people in the suburb.
Right.
And then Kansas City, the city has probably about 2 million people total
Right.
in it. So, but it's a nice suburb, and it's far enough away to the city that you have the suburb life. But if you want to go to the city, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, you can be wherever you need to go. So I enjoy being in this part of the country too, because when I travel, I can be anywhere in the country on a plane in under 3 hours. So that's nice too. And then I have a nice radius to drive, that if I choose to drive, then, and a lot of times if I can, I drive as much as possible. So if it's 8 hours or less drive, I'll just drive. That way I know I never get stuck in an airport with delays and things. So that's what I'll do. But yeah, it's been a good state.
That's wonderful. I mean, I live not as big as you live with the big city, but it's a small, nice town towards the coast. It's in Kent, and Kent is a beautiful place. It's known as Garden of England, the Royal Garden of England. It's full of gardens and full of coastlines, full of beaches around. It's a beautiful place and one of the most warmest, mildest places in the UK as well. But where I live, it's so well located towards London, very easy to get there, towards the coast as well, towards the motorway, towards the beaches. Anywhere you want to go to, it's very close, but yet it's still very lovely little town, half rural. You enjoy the nature. You know, my the park where I go to, it's along a river. It's just beautiful. So you have both worlds as such. You don't have to live in one world, and that's what I love here since I moved down here. It's just beautiful.
There's something. It seems like something came across my feed about Kent in particular. There's something famous. I can't remember what the story was now, but it fascinated me because then I looked to see.
You're not talking about Darwin. Darwin?
It might be. I'm not sure.
Evolutionary psychology?
I wonder, because
his house is here in Seven Oaks.
Okay, maybe that's what it is then, because I hadn't heard, and then I Googled it, and I got on the map and I started looking around at pictures, and it was a beautiful area. There's bridges, and it was just really neat, picturesque, like a postcard.
That's right. It is lovely. I can send you some pictures if we exchange numbers. Yeah, are you on WhatsApp?
Yes. Yes, I do use that app.
So if you would like to, yes, I can send you some pictures. It's a beautiful place, actually.
It's a beautiful area. So it's just amazing. There's a lot of beautiful locations around the world that just kind of hidden little gems.
That's right. No, Kent is lovely. I love it here. I prefer this place rather than living inside London. It's just not for me. A big city. To work there is fine, but not to stay there as such, you know.
How big is London?
I think it's one of the major cities in the world. It's around the size of New York.
Oh wow, that is large.
Yeah, it is quite large. It's very dense as well, because New York is only 200 years old, but London is over 1,000 years old. So you can see by the architecture, you know, roads are sometimes smaller, which part is newer, which part is older. But that's the beauty about that, although there's some dark history there because of the past. But the buildings, the history in general, we have the London dungeons, which describe the Black Past, all the things which people were going through at that time. And we have lots of different attractions which go back in history, which you can actually feel and see and smell, and just just visualize what actually really happened. But that's the interesting thing. I mean, I'm a big historian. I love history. I love archaeology. And I love exploring things. So when I came to London, it was so interesting to see all these different things. What is behind that specific building? What is happening, and why has it happened? Why does it look like this? You know?
It's amazing. Yeah, that is a really old city. And people that have went over there from the States have always told me that just the history, because this country is only a few hundred years old versus having places like that where, hey, you know, very famous historical figures walked on these streets. It's pretty amazing.
Right. That's right. And the good thing is, and don't mind me saying that, any American, our houses never fly away. That's solid brickwork. They're not built of wood.
Yeah. Very true.
That's the difference. I always said if I ever was to move to the States, I would actually build a solid brickwork. Most probably call the Germans in because I like the architecture. make them build a solid foundation which never flies away.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, it's been a delight talking to you. Actually, we're over another 40 minutes. I mean, my audience usually love over an hour shows for some reason. They just enjoy it, and because I just engage with my guests and I'll keep it very organic as I've done now. I don't like to create a catalogue of questions because it just makes it too formal. And you see so many podcasts who have all these questions, and it just becomes boring after 10 minutes. You don't even want to listen to that no more. And you know, if it was a bit earlier during the day, I would have had my coffee here. But if I had a coffee now, it's 22:09. I would be staying awake all night.
Well, I appreciate being a guest on your show, and I just thank you for that. And it's an honor to meet you and be a part of your podcast. Wonderful.
Yes, no, I have do explore, and I'm creating my brand. Well, I've created actually my brand. It will come out very soon. Have a look at David's podcast as well, which he was my guest. I think you will be laughing. Anytime you have a bad day, watch that podcast, and your day will be just fine. You will think, oh, these two nutters just came out of institution, isn't it? But yes, no, it's been a delight. If you would like to, we can exchange numbers. Just send me a message, and yes, and I'll send you mine. And it would be lovely to stay in touch with you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.